Welcome to the first episode. Today we're talking about one of the oldest traps of the human mind, the endless loop of fear and desire. Most people spend their lives worrying about events that are extraordinarily unlikely. We build our identities around stories that happen to the 1% of the 1%. Yet our minds replay these narratives until they become our reality. While we're trapped in that loop, our own purpose waits. Here's something worth considering. The mind doesn't truly delete information. It accumulates. Every new experience, every new perspective, every meaningful process adds another layer. Growth isn't about erasing the past, it's about building something so much larger that fear gradually loses its dominance. On the other side of suffering, there should not be endless regret or shame. Yet the victim often carries emotions that rightfully belong to the one who caused the harm. Why? Because emotionally sensitive people seek understanding. When they cannot perceive the larger context, the immediate experience becomes absolute truth. If that fragile reality is shattered, recovery can take years or even generations. Those unresolved emotions become inherited stories: fear, revenge, jealousy. Entire families and communities begin organizing their lives around narratives they never consciously chose. Those consumed by hatred often become singularly focused, projecting their fears onto everyone around them. But there is another path. The greatest mistake is allowing ourselves to become permanent carriers of emotional baggage. Pain can become a prison, or it can become fuel. The same experience that destroys one person can become the process that transforms another. The challenge is not to forget. The challenge is to create something greater than what happened to us. When we stop feeding the cycle of fear and begin building a meaningful process, we reclaim our attention, our creativity, and ultimately, our freedom. That's where transformation begins. But transformation cannot stop with the individual. We also have to understand how fear escapes the mind and becomes embedded in society itself. Fear is rarely just an emotion. It becomes identity. Once fear becomes identity, people begin defending stories instead of investigating reality. We no longer ask, "Is this true?" We ask, "Does this protect who I think I am?" This is where one of the greatest human mistakes begins. It is incredibly important not to rush into believing or disbelieving everything we encounter. Belief and disbelief are often two sides of the same coin. The moment we become emotionally attached to either, our minds begin searching only for evidence that confirms what we already want to be true. We stop learning. Real understanding happens differently. Information should be allowed to assimilate naturally into experience. Reality does not require our immediate judgment. It asks only for our attention. The strongest minds are not those with the strongest opinions. They are the ones capable of remaining open while evidence unfolds. Think about how much conflict exists, simply because people inherit conclusions instead of discovering them. Entire generations inherit stories they never lived through. They inherit enemies. They inherit fears. They inherit revenge. Eventually, they inherit identities built upon experiences that were never their own. The result is a society where people spend more energy protecting inherited narratives than creating new possibilities. Something interesting happens. You may not fit neatly into any group. That can feel uncomfortable, but perhaps it is exactly how freedom begins. Most unity throughout history has been created through shared identities. Yet every identity naturally creates an opposite. Every us quietly creates a them. The more tightly we cling to identity, the more fragile our peace becomes. This doesn't mean community is wrong. It means awareness must come before identification. Otherwise, fear simply changes costumes. Now let's go even deeper. Fear naturally gives birth to desire. Once we become afraid of not having enough, we begin wanting more security, more approval, more certainty, more money. Money itself is not the problem. Money is simply one of the most powerful amplifiers humanity has ever created. It magnifies whatever already exists inside us. If someone is driven by creativity, money expands creativity. If someone is driven by generosity, money expands generosity. But if someone is ruled by greed, insecurity, or power, money multiplies those qualities just as efficiently. Capitalism, therefore, is not merely an economic system. It is a mirror. It reflects the consciousness of the people participating in it. When desire becomes unconscious, consumption replaces fulfillment. People begin believing that another purchase, another promotion, another investment, another possession will finally quiet their entire lifetime chasing comfort without ever discovering peace. The marketplace cannot sell inner stillness. No amount of external wealth can replace internal clarity. When desire is directed outward, it becomes endless consumption. When desire is directed inward, it becomes transformation. The energy is identical, only its direction changes. This brings us back to fear. Most people think fear and desire are opposites. They aren't. They are partners. Fear says, I might lose. Desire says, I must gain. Both are attempts to escape the present moment. The mind oscillates endlessly between what it fears and what it wants, rarely experiencing what actually is. Freedom begins the moment you stop asking, what can I acquire? And begin asking, what can I become? Because your life will never be transformed by what you possess. It will be transformed by the quality of consciousness with which you live. And perhaps that is the greatest paradox of all. The world teaches us to control everything outside ourselves. But real freedom begins the moment we understand the only thing we were ever meant to master was our own mind.